Hi, everybody. My name is Sid Garza-Hillman. I am you probably were maybe expecting Jeff Stanford. He couldn't make it. His dog, one of his dogs, was not well, so he stayed back at the inn. Thank God, because honestly, just no, just kidding. Anyway, I head up the wellness center at the Stanford Inn. I'm a nutritionist there, but I'm also who I am as well, which is a nutritionist, health coach, podcaster, YouTuber, and speaker. And that's what I do. Welcome, everybody. Can everybody hear me okay? Yes. Good. All right. You do the deal. So, vegans in a non-vegan world. A little bit about me, just to start, give you just a little bit of context. Years ago, many more than I'd like to admit, I went to college and I got a bachelor's degree in philosophy from UCLA. Philosophy degree led me into what you do train for as a philosophy major, which is to be an indie rock musician. So it was an easy transition there. And I did that in Los Angeles for about 10 years, made my living acting and playing rock music when I could. But in 1992, I read a diet book, a nutrition book called Fit for Life. Does anybody remember that book? And I gave up dairy at the time. That was the only thing I did. I wasn't even vegan at the time. I gave up dairy only, and my asthma went away. That was asthma that I had my entire life, literally from day one, going asthma attacks to the hospital, the whole deal. Also had things like strep throat often, ear infections often, stomach aches often. Giving up dairy made my asthma go away. I found an old picture recently of my college, one of the places I lived in college, an apartment, which was an absolute train wreck. But there was my inhaler by my bed. I remember it very, very well. That was it. That meant a lot to me then because it spoke to two things. The power of food, and two, quality of life. And what I'm really talking about here today, even though I'm a nutritionist and health coach, is the quality of life. I want to start you thinking just for this hour to maybe come back to why we even made the decisions we made, but more on that in a minute. Can you cue my next slide, please? Perceptions of veganism. It's not relevant who here is vegan and who here is not, but everybody has a perception of veganism. Again, I work at the Stanford Inn. There's no cell here, but it's the only vegan resort in the country. Most guests that come there are not vegan or vegetarian, but we do get vegans to come as well. It makes sense. It's perfect. But there's perceptions of veganism for the people that aren't vegan that walk in our door and the people that I come in contact with. Hippies, no energy, low protein, Birkenstock wearing, militant, crazy, restrictive. These are perceptions of veganism that exist in the world. We know that. We also know that the decisions we make to be vegan make us a minority that's unheard of. It's like 0.2% was the last thing I read of people in the United States that are 0.2, not 2, 0.2. There's not a lot of us. It makes you what I call an ethical minority to make that decision in the first place, to think about something that most people don't think about. Nobody's stupid, nobody's bad, we're busy, we have lives, we have families and jobs, and we want to look at the next guy and go, I can't believe you don't think about the things that I think. They're thinking about other stuff. It's not on their radar yet, and that's okay. It's on our radar, not on theirs. It's not like, oh, poor sap. Okay? All right. Perceptions of veganism. We want to get on top of that. Next slide, please. So here's the deal, and the reason I mentioned the 1992 act that I did was to give up dairy. If you look at food, which we like to do, and we like to learn all about food, and we want to know about vitamin D, and we want to know about B12, and protein levels, and fat, and carbohydrate, and all the minerals and content. We know I want to take notes on all that stuff, and nuts and seeds are good for you. No, they're bad for you. Oh my God, if you eat oil, you're going to die, and all that, and our heads explode. But the fact is in the food realm, the act that I made in 1992 was restrictive. I gave up dairy. I was eating dairy and then I wasn't eating dairy. I restricted my diet. But if you look at the life that I was living, indie rock musician, I was also a runner, still am. If you look at the quality of my life went way up. It was not a restrictive act in the context of my whole life. This is why I argue that we need to broaden the thinking. We need to broaden the way that we approach our decisions and stop making it about food, because it's really not about food. I'll jump ahead a little bit. If anybody here listens to my podcast, you'll know that I'm a fan of the single malt scotch. I think we can all admit, maybe against our better wishes, that an egg is more healthy than single malt Scotch. There are more vitamins and minerals in that egg. There's more nutrients in that egg than there is in the single malt Scotch. I know that single malt Scotch is absolute junk food, 100% junk food. I enjoy it. I do it once in a while, maybe once every couple weeks I'll have one. Why do I never have an egg? Who here knows? Why do I could have an egg once in a while and be totally as healthy as I am now. Why?
Cholesterol building.
No. One egg ain't gonna tip the scales. Ethics. A non-food related reason. A non-food, I'm just gonna point at that guy until my arm, you're wrong, but because you're right. Non-food reason. We forget that, and we want to get into it with people about protein. All this kind of stuff. It's like, it's not the argument. That's not the argument. That's why we know everybody knows that somebody was vegan and they couldn't walk. Anybody here ever have a cold or the flu? Because you're vegan. We all know that. But if we really get to the bare bones of why we're doing what we're doing, a different picture presents. Can you please? To choose or not to choose, that is the answer. A lot of my approach, my podcast, YouTube channel, everything I do, is predicated on this idea of us as a natural being. The idea is to understand that. Did anybody here read George Orwell's Animal Farm? Okay, we all did in high school. We were made to. It's animals dressed up as people. Guess who else is? We are. We're animals dressed up as people. And we want to forget that fact because we don't look like them and we're outside of them. We look at binoculars to nature. But the fact of the matter is we're still natural beings. The fact of the matter is we have very simple needs nutritionally like every other wild animal. We overthink nutrition, don't we? Do we know more than any other species about nutrition? Yes, we do. That makes us the healthiest species on the, wait a second. We're not. Knowledge is not delivering us health. It's again, you'll see where I'm going with this. But to choose or not to choose means this. In the wild, we'd be walking around in the wild, not wearing this, maybe, and we'd be looking for food. Nobody in this room, and I don't know barely any of you, nobody in this room would go, what do I feel like tonight, Italian or Mexican? We would look for food and we would find food. We wouldn't be having the discussion of whole plants, which is refined, whole wheat, white flour. Oil is good for you, fat levels, no discussion of that in the wild. We would find food and we'd eat it. And the fact of the matter is, as nutty nut as the paleo diet is, I wish everybody would go paleo, which is that if there's plants around, you're going to eat them because it takes less energy to get those things. And if an animal runs by, you're going to go, hey, I'll see, I'm going to eat the blackberries. And if there's no plants, then we'll go get an animal. But yeah, let's have 15,000 books about how that's, we need to eat meat 8 times a day, just like the paleo. I call them Safeway paleos. Like, yes, Paleolithic people walked into Safeway and they bought beef in a cellophane with no energy expenditure. The fact that I'm trying to make here is that we choose food. Now we have a choice about food. We have to make a decision to eat healthy or to eat non-animal foods. We have to make a decision about something that we are not adapted to making a decision about, in my estimation. We also have to decide to move our bodies. How weird is that? Every other animal in the wild moves, but doesn't exercise. No wild animal exercises. I'm going to move from 9 to 9:30, and then I'm going to stop and just do nothing for 8 hours. We're the only ones that go, I've got to move my body now for no reason at all, and then I'm going to sit here and do that. And the wild animals go, okay, good, I'm going to go over here and get a blackberry, but why are they on a treadmill doing nothing, going nowhere? So we have to make decisions about these things, don't we? On top of everything else that we have to do in the world, raise families, deal with what I know everybody agrees, when you look at the news, it's all good news. There's no stress reading the news. It's all healthy and positive. So we got to deal with that. Raising families, the fear every day that I have of leaving my kids at school. I'm not even kidding. Because I've read the news. I know what happens. I say goodbye to my kids every morning, and I get in the car. So on top of that, we have to choose if we want to choose. If we want a life that is an extension of our values, we have to make a choice about it. We're no longer just finding food to eat food. We have to go in the market, thousands of things, thinking, expending energy to decide, I will eat this even though I really feel like eating that. And that thing over there, the crunch berries, which I have a problem with, is colored to look like berries, and that makes me think it's good in my design of being attracted to bright colors.
the antioxidants and things like that. That's why those things are colored that way. It makes us attracted. So I've got to fight that kind of thing to make a, what? Conscious decision. Making it, that guy again, a bigger picture than food. It's a philosophy question. It's an ethics question. When I got into college, I was an economics major for about a day. Mostly because their classes started at 8 and that was off the table. Then I was an English major for like 2 weeks because of maybe a bad grade. And then I took a philosophy class as an elective. And just like it was like, I mean, that was the moment. And I went, wow, this is so great. And I would take ethics classes and I would think about these things never having thought about them before, because we're not raised to think about that stuff. I wasn't anyway. Went to school in Texas. There's no ethics there anyway. Totally kidding. I'm totally kidding. Next slide, please. So, what am I getting at? I'm getting at this thing. I'm getting at us for a moment, getting past the vitamin B and the vitamin C and the vitamin A, but there's more than one B vitamin. I know, I want to get past the protein and carbohydrates, and I want you to remember, for whatever reason you decided or are thinking about choosing to be vegan, I want you to think about that choice for a second. It can be a combination of health, because you know what happens to animals, because you know what happens to the environment, and it can be a combination of those three things. When I gave up dairy, it was 100% for health. It was like, no asthma, good. But then I bought cookbooks or whatever, and then oh my, holy crap, that's happening also, and so then I wanted to give up everything else. But we need to remember that for this reason. Next slide, please. Example is not the main thing in influencing others, it is the only thing. Albert Schweitzer. I bring this quote with me. I speak all over the country and even Scotland a month ago. And I bring this. There was a little bit of a language barrier over there, but they got the gist. Example is not the main thing in influencing others, it's the only thing. We want to make it about protein, and we want to make it about the arguments and everything else, and we don't want to make it about this simple fact that if we don't remember the reasons we came to this decision, we fail in our ability to communicate it into the world. We fail in our ability to say, can you listen to me for a second, because this horrible stuff is happening for real to all of us as a species, and can you listen to me, because I really, really, really want you to listen to me because it's horrific and I know that, and so I already acted on it and I really, really, really want you to act on it. Has anybody here ever met an angry vegan? I've met such angry vegans, I'm like, I don't know if I want to be vegan still. It doesn't communicate well. I was just talking to a guy earlier who's there, and that guy, I'm just pointing all day, and it was like maybe 0.001% of people are walking down the street and they're like, I wish somebody would get in my face about something because I'm totally open right now. and then the activist comes and you're like, oh my God, yes. But mostly that's not the case. And I can speak to this partly because I run a wellness center at a vegan resort. I know how it is when 90% of our guests are not vegan or vegetarian, when they come in and it's their first foray into vegan. And I mean first, man. They're like, I've never had a vegan meal. Ever. That's what they say. I go, you've never had oatmeal? But it's the first time. And so if we get here with that, what's that going to do? We already get a bad review, my favorite bad review. No options for non-vegans. Swear to God, you can look it up. No options for non-vegans at a vegan resort. I'm not even kidding. So we're already at this thing of like, we've got to present what we believe is the original reason why we, Jeff Stanford, Joan, and I, and the few people on our staff, not many, but few, made this decision in the first place, which is that we want what? A better frickin' world. Whether it's you being healthy so you can do the things that you want to do, or the animals, or the environment, you are doing it for a world that you think is it's about you. It's about you. It's 100% about you in the way that you communicate to the world. It's your actions. I call it holistic self-interest. We are selfish. Our bodies are working for themselves right now. They're not like, I'm going to put this on hold and help that guy. They're fixing themselves. So we're trying to find low stress. We're trying to conserve stress. be happier, find more joy. And we maybe do that as vegans by saying, I don't want to live in a world where that stuff happens. I don't want to live in a world where I have children that are growing up into an environment that is on the decline. I want to act on that because I want to make a better world. But we forget that and we get mired in the bad news. On occasion, I'll catch a YouTube video for whatever reason about showing the animals. Anybody ever? You've all seen. Does that make you in a good mood? Does that make you happy and go out in the world and go, I'm so happy that I made this decision. Oh my God, that was shocking. And I'll stumble upon it and my wife always goes, why are you looking at that? You know already. You acted already. She's vegan. My kids are vegan since birth. I have 12-year-old and 7-year-old twins, except for breast milk. And I mean human breast milk, not cow's breast milk. All vegan. Why would you look at that thing? And she's 100% right. I don't need a reminder. I know that it's going on. I want to remember and be connected to why I made the decision in the first place, is I want to feel better and live in a better world, and I want to translate that ethically to people that I come in contact with via the example, not via what I say, really, not via what I say. The things that are concrete and measurable in a way. And of course, I'm a nutritionist, so do I think whole plants are the best game in town? For sure, absolutely. But if I talk to you about science, somebody's going to go, well, I have this study that shows dairy's good for you. And I have another one that shows, well, we know that dairy sponsored. Okay, we don't win. We don't win. There's two. Anybody know Garth Davis? He wrote Proteinaholic. I had him on my podcast. And he's getting attacked by paleo and this whole thing. He's like, at some point, I just don't get into an argument with him because it's just sort of like, why would if I get mired in the research, they've got their studies, I've got mine. I think it's a bigger picture than that. I think we've got to make a decision, and this is the fact. If I found out beyond a shadow of a doubt that vegan was not the healthiest diet, I don't mean vegan's not a diet, really it's not, it's what you don't eat, so I'm going to say whole food, plant-based, okay? If I found out that was not the healthiest, if I found out, and I read study after study, I was like, oh my God, paleo, as presented by the Nutty Nuts, that's meat, 8 times bacon, Chef Waldorf salad on the cover of the Paleo magazine in my market, I swear to God. Chef Waldorf salad, because that's what they were eating back in, And so if I found out that was healthier, hands down, I would still be vegan. I would still be vegan. I would not change, even if it were healthier for me to do otherwise. And that still is about me, because it's about the world I want to live with. And in. Next slide, please. I want you to think about, and I also do a lot of talks on parenting, so I'm going to relate it this way, and it's not relevant if you have kids or not. But people talk about what do you do with your kids being vegan and and they're the only vegans in the whole school. I'm not even kidding. Like, that's it, okay? I'm the only vegan family of all of our town and social network, period. Okay, but we still have friends. We manage to live a life. Okay, partly movie night again at home. No, partly because we feel good and we are healthy. I mean, it's what it is. I'm in better shape. Not a bragging thing. It's a thing. I'll get to this in a minute, but it's a thing that is part of my job. It's a thing that is part of my ethic of living the example, is to be healthy, is to be happy and joyful, is to focus on those things. But the choice of many means this when I'm translating this to my kids. They say, what do you talk to your kids about? Well, I don't show my 7-year-old horrific videos of pigs being brutalized, because that does nothing to them other than damage them. I don't show it to my 12-year-old either. But we put veganism in this context, and I want you to think about this for yourselves too. But here's the family values of the Garza-Hillman family, okay? We don't cheat. We don't steal. We don't hurt people for no reason. We don't harm animals. We don't lie. Those are values of the family. Do you see how animals just was in there? It was just in there. And we, again, because of labels like vegan, we want to sort of set that outside what it really is, which is it's ultimately an ethical, and I actually argue that self-care is an ethical. I think we should ethically take care of ourselves, fuel these bodies well. I think that's an ethical thing. But even if you don't agree, making the decision to be vegan for the reasons of animals and environment is an ethical decision, but it's one of the ethical decisions. It's not, again, I'm trying to, in a way, can you hit the next slide for me? Focus on our natural design, which is to be happy and to be healthy. I want to focus on those things. I want to appeal to the natural drive in us that is our bodies right now trying. I go on a 7-day detox. Your body's always detoxing. You can help it along, but it's always doing the business. Right now, trillions of things going on in all of our bodies that the personalities of us have nothing to do with. Our bodies are like, yeah, look at the bald guy, but I'm going to get this done. So just kind of, it'd be great if you could help me by giving me stuff to help me do that better, but either way, I'm going to try. This is not an exaggeration when I tell you that people woke up this morning and they went to Dunkin' Donuts and had a donut and a cup of coffee, and then for lunch they had a turkey sandwich on white bread with cheese and a Coke and a bag of chips, and then for dinner they had a cheese pizza and a beer. And that's not unusual. It's really not. And does the body go, sorry, I'm going to shut down until you feed me better? The body goes, okay, I'll get up tomorrow. And as long as I can keep getting up, I'll get up. It keeps doing the things that we ask it to do. It's a kind of a profound thing when you think about it. That the body never shuts down for us. It may eventually shut down against its own will, but it doesn't willfully say, I'm done here. It says, I'll keep doing what I can do, the best I can do it. That's an amazing thing. But see, I think our minds are the same way. I think we're searching for joy. I think we're searching for happiness. I think we're searching for less stress. I think the conflict comes when we are up against choices about food, like I said, choices about exercise. So then this, my favorite word, not at all, should. I should exercise. I should eat vegan. I should go plant-based. I should do this. Instead of, I'm going to do this because it represents the values of me. I'm going to raise my kids plant-based against all better judgment of the medical profession. I'll show you this real quick. Who has decent eyesight? Anybody can read small print? Good. Nutrition, good start nutrition during pregnancy. Got this in the doctor's office 7.5 years ago when my wife was pregnant with our twins. Okay? I was in school to become a nutritionist. Read out loud the bottom by the 8. Out loud, loud as you can.
Copyright
that one.
Copyright 1988, revised 1992, National Cattlemen's Beef Association.
In the doctor's office. In the doctor's office. Do you think it would be easier for me to raise my kids not vegan? A ton easier. I mean a ton easier. Do you know the day-to-day that we deal with? The fact is that two things have happened. One, it's become what we do. So it's become less devalued in a way that it's not like, it's just what it is. But two, I become very cognizant of the why of that decision. So that every time I'm frustrated that I have to bring food for a thing, I quickly go, oh yeah, of course I do. Because I don't want it any other way. And I don't mind the extra effort, just like I don't mind the extra effort to be healthy at 47 years old. Would it be easier for me to eat what everybody eats? 100%. It's not easier to be vegan. It's not easier to be vegan. We have to think even more than people think. We go to a restaurant where everybody has a choice, but we have those two things. Vegans are like, we have good musculature to make this move. I'll have that. All of our left arms are just muscular. We've built that activity grade in our sleep. We're just like,
and hold the cheese.
Yeah, do you have that with you? It's not easier to be vegan. It is not easier, and especially when you're raising kids, it's not. If you don't attach your actions to the why that you did in the first place, you will fail, because here's why you'll fail. You might push through it with willpower, but you're going to fail here. You're going to live a life that is not happy, that isn't about joy. People often ask, not to come back to the Stanford, and there's no sell here. People often ask, like, well, you have a bar. You know, it's not a health retreat. It's a luxury retreat. And it's because we want people to we have wellness center and all that kind of crap, but we want people to remember a joy, that you can go on vacation maybe and have fun. Where's the fun? What happened to the fun of this? When we start taking notes on nuts and seeds, and then we go to another lecture and that guy says the opposite, and where's the fun of it? Where's the fun of it? That's what I want to recapture. Next slide, please. Here's how we do it. This is a solution. I don't want to come here and just bitch about stuff and then, I'll see you later. Solution. Stealing moments. Here's what I mean by that. I talk about this a lot on the podcast, so if you listen to the podcast, sorry to be redundant or repetitive. For people to live as, what I said, ethical minorities. Making a decision that nobody makes and that most people just do not think about, and again, they're not bad, they're not stupid, they're just not on their radar, and we've all got a ton of stuff going. Again, with raising families and everything I do, certainly it would be easier for me not to have to think about anything extra, trust me. Okay? And it's like, once you open up, it's like one thing after another. Now it's like my wife goes, "God, here's what's going on with chocolate," and I'm oh, for the love of God. Like it wasn't now vegan chocolate, now I got to make sure that the chocolate is from the place that doesn't abuse the stuff, whatever. And I make that decision, and I do it. We were just in Trader Joe's recently, and I grabbed these chocolate almonds that have like salt and cocoa in they're to die for. Literally, and I go in the cart, and she's like, "Don't get those because Trader Joe's won't say where they source their chocolate." And I was like, but I'm totally, but at the same time, I'm totally okay with it. And that's the weird thing about us as humans. I felt so much like having those almonds, but just didn't feel like having them at the same time. The very same time, conflicting things. What wins out is here. What wins out is here. If I go by feel, I get the almonds. And I later go, man, I don't want to be a part of that whole shebang. Again, I could eat a little bit of something and be totally healthy. And if everybody ate teeny little bits, it'd be a different picture environmentally and all these kinds of things. I don't want to be part of that whole thing. I don't want to be part of it. Here's what it comes down to, you guys. We cannot spend, most of us, because of jobs and families, an inordinate amount of time on these big picture stuff. We have families and social engagements and fun with our friends. It has to come down, in my opinion, to moments. Moments where you clue in with a deep breath. I'm the small step guy, that's my thing. I start clients off sometimes with 1 deep breath per day because the idea of 20 minutes of meditation is too much for them. It stresses them out. I go 1 deep breath, start there. 1 minute walk. But for us, if you want to come into the world and actually translate your actions and hope to influence somebody else and in doing so influence the world, it's got to be moments of checking in and grounding yourself, remembering momentarily. Not, I have to take 2 hours on Saturday to read, to assess. Just, it's that Trader Joe's moment where I go, and I go, yeah, okay, I got it. I know where my values are. I'm very clear about my values. I'm very clear about my ethics. I did the thinking already to quantify and just know what I stand for. I want every client I've ever worked with, know who you are, regardless of how you've been acting in the world. That may be different than what you value. And if we don't remember what we actually value, then we do come across as angry, because the fact is we know right now, billions of animals are living in absolutely horrific situations. Do we compartmentalize that information? Yes, we do. We do. And so do people who aren't vegan. And we go, oh, they don't want to think about it. Neither do we. I don't think about that stuff. Otherwise, I'd never get out of bed. You guys know who Gene Bauer is? Farm Sanctuary? Okay, I had him on the podcast. He's become a friend. I said, how do you get out of bed every morning? He's in that world. He's seeing it, and he's up against it every day with a newsletter. He goes, I always have to think about the stuff that we've done, the positive stuff we've done. Gene is an amazing ambassador of this ethic. Amazing, because he looks joyful. He's a nice, gentle, kind person. It's attaching to those values, because he steals moments in that morning to remember, okay, that's not for me. I'm already acting on it. I got to remember this moment of who am I? And what have I done here? Okay, now I'm getting out of bed and going into the world and not just making people freaked out by what I've done. Next slide, please. I'm going to finish up with this slide. The bar is set high. And I've already touched on it a little bit. But again, this speaks to is it easier to live this way or not? Regardless of whether you're vegan or not, if you're curious about it or you're thinking about it, you are now thinking about something again that you absolutely do not have to think about. The world has catered to you not to think about stuff. These little devices make it such that we don't have to have a moment to ourselves. If any moment alone, we can just, Donald Trump said that, no, I'm joking. It's not even on. We can be distracted and fill our brains. We never have to contemplate or consider anything. Isn't that amazing? We have, because of our brilliance, have invented things that allow us to never even have to move. We don't have to choose or think. We had a problem years ago, which was that we had to walk from here to turn the channel on our television. We solved it. We solved that problem with a remote because we didn't want to walk the 4 feet. Because we're designed for less stress. We are designed for less stress. We are designed for conservation. We're conservation mechanisms right here. We like to expend less energy on stuff. That's what our bodies and minds do. And so technology has allowed us to just make that amazing. The stress of considering your life and thinking, gosh, I haven't been living the way that is in line with my values and ethics. That's kind of a tough pill to swallow. That's why I tell people, ease in. Don't necessarily change anything right away. Get to know who you are. Get to know what you stand for. I don't like animals being tortured and I'm still eating chicken. Okay, there needs to be a change here because there's a conflict. But isn't it great to know that that is in conflict with your values? Isn't that a great place to start? And when you talk to somebody that is open or maybe interested about what you're doing, which many people are because they want to know how I'm raising kids that are 100% plant-based, they think, my doctors think that, be careful. You have to be very careful. Isn't that the line? You can do it, but you have to be careful. Isn't that great? I go, yeah, we do have to be super, super careful, just not as careful as people who are feeding their kids dairy and meat. And that's the truth. That's the truth. I think everybody has to be careful. And so I think that the bar set high means if we, vegans, want to make the world a better place, if we want to influence the people in our lives and beyond, and boy, with social media, it is beyond like nobody's business. If we want to make changes that are that profound, we have to focus on us, and that's a bummer because we sometimes don't want to or don't think we have the time for that, and maybe sometimes we don't have the time, but it's all about fixing this, being more joyful, being healthier in our bodies, being vibrant with energy, and translating that. We want to tell somebody in the moment, and it pains us to not get in somebody's face because we know the horror, but we have to be not 10 years old and go, but that's what I want to do, and really be adult about the fact that that's probably not going to change anybody's mind, and if we fix this, that probably will change people's minds. I do get frustrated on occasion where I go, I feel like I'm not influencing anybody, and my wife will say, which your parents are now vegan, your sister is almost, not all the way, but damn close. Her kids, same thing. The families that we socialize with in our little town, it started with, come over for dinner. Oh, we'd love to, we'll bring food. That was my line. I always tell people, just bring your food. Don't even ask. Just don't put it on them. Just bring food and make it awesome. Bar set high. Your food better taste good. Everybody wants an excuse not to be vegan. This is the perfect, that's why I'm not vegan. This one thing is not tasty. This one thing is the reason I will never be vegan. So we brought our food. That's what we did every time. And my wife would make extra, because as vegans, everyone eats your stuff, and you're just like, no, none left. And so we would make extra, we would bring it. And we would bring it, and people go, oh my gosh, that's really good. Done, end of story, done. Not, oh, well, the reason it's good is because we don't have it. Done, it's done. Transaction complete. Now, a couple years later, do you want to come over for dinner? Yeah, I'd love to come over for dinner. What can we bring? Nothing, we got it. We're doing a whole vegan meal, I am not kidding you. Where we'll be the only vegan family of 5 families, and it's a vegan meal. The whole thing. The whole thing, nobody's vegan. I didn't say anything like I really wish you guys would do vegan because it's compassionate and it helps the environment. Do I believe that to be true? Yes. Do I want people to change? Yeah, I do. Because I live in the world just like you guys. Is the bar set high for vegans? It doesn't have to be, but I think that it should be. I think because we're making a decision for a better world, the bar is set high for us. Because if you accept my premise that it is about the example you set, then it is a higher bar. And it means that I have to pay closer attention to my health, because if I'm not healthy, it will use that as an excuse not to be vegan. If I'm angry, they will use that as an excuse not to be vegan. If we deliver food that doesn't taste good, they will use that as an excuse not to be vegan, because they want to feel right just like we do. And they don't want to feel guilty and crappy about what they've done. Most people, and I believe this, I swear to you, I believe this, are humane. I think 99.9% of people will avoid a squirrel on the road. I live in a rural place. We see deer. Every car that I'm behind, it sees a deer, slow stops for that deer. That's humanity at its best. That's the best part of us. And we can connect to that, or we can connect to then calling that person a jerk because they eat meat, even though they just stopped to save a deer. The bar is set high for us, and I think instead of trying to be mad about that and go, why should I have to pay closer attention? I think we embrace that fact and go, yeah, game on with this. I got to make sure I get my ducks in a row here. I want to make sure I do the due diligence of making myself as happy as possible, raising my family as happy and healthy as possible, making my body function well and have energy so that when I walk into the world, people look and go, what's that guy doing? Maybe consciously or unconsciously, but they go, what's that guy doing? I ran a 50-mile race last year at 47. I'm a slow runner. I'm a crappy runner. But it's kind of interesting that at 47, I could pull that off for the first time ever. A friend of mine from high school died last week, 2 weeks ago, of lupus. 46 years old, 4 children, small children, my high school friend. It's happening for people my age. Not to end on a negative note, but the bar is set high. So we can either complain about that we have to do more and pay more attention than other people, or we can say, that's awesome. Because when we do pay more attention, we actually do create a world in ourselves that we do want to live in, and we do influence people, and we do make the world a better place little by little. And that's an amazing thing. And so what I say to a bar is set high is challenge accepted. Thank you very much.